3, 2, and 1. We are live. Smash Mouth Sports. I'm your host, as always, Preston Bailey. Cam Vieira's with me, and we're excited and honored to have the great Matt McCarthy, 98.5, the Sports Hub in New England, returning. Matt, how you doing?
Guys, I'm doing great. I'm sure you're doing great down there in Tampa. My quarterback, Tom Brady, going on to the NFC Championship game. Another championship Sunday, another Tom Brady Sunday. That might as well name the freaking weekend after him. I'm doing great. Hope you guys are doing well.
Absolutely. We're waiting on Felger. I don't know if he's in a covert bunker somewhere because of political reasons. I don't know what's going on with him, but I promise you he should be calling in shortly, so we'll get him on when he gets in, but the show must move on. We've got to get into it. Tampa Bay, we're extremely excited and honored. I've said this all year long. I feel honored that Tom Brady chose Tampa Bay. He could have gone anywhere that he wanted to go. He chose the Bucs. I know a lot of people believe it's the system. It's amazing how great the system is when it comes with Tom Brady. That's what I've noticed. So, but here's what we're going to preview. 3:05 this weekend, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Green Bay Packers. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Packers are 3-point favorites. It's not a homer pick. I'm picking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm rooting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's the best team we've had since the Super Bowl by a landslide. This arguably might be the best team the Bucs have ever had. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, I like the Bucs this weekend a lot. Now, granted, I didn't like them last weekend against the Saints, so it goes to, show you what I know, which is absolutely nothing. I always felt if the Bucs got this far and they ended up matching up with the Packers, I kind of like that matchup for them. I do. And, listen, Felger can, speak much more to, what the Packers are. I mean, listen, I see them, once every 2 weekends, 3 weekends. So I'm not sitting there, with my cheese head on every weekend and watching that team.
Sure.
I just feel like this is a really good matchup for the Bucs because, and we'll see what the conditions are. This strikes me as a high scoring game. And those are the types of games that strike me that benefit the Bucs. I mean, listen, Tom Brady, 43 years old or not, I don't want to get in a shootout with that guy. They've got a good run defense. I don't buy that pass defense in Tampa. I really don't. You can speak to that better than I can.
What?
But I don't. But I don't buy that Packers defense either. I mean, I just don't know if it's a great matchup against Brady. I mean, I really don't like that Saints defense. They had Brady's number all year. They certainly contained him for stretches of that game last Sunday. But I really like this matchup for the Bucs a lot. I think they've got a legitimate chance to win this game and go to the Super Bowl. I always felt that if they got this far, it was one of those, like, you got to get over that hump early on against the Saints. Like, if they matched up against the Saints, I wasn't going to pick them. But they got over that hump, and to me, in many ways, sky's the limit for this team now. Once you get past that team, it's kind of like the Patriots getting past the Ravens in 14. It's like, all right, we got past that team. That seems like a bit of a tougher test. And I don't think the Packers are, by any stretch of the imagination, an easy out. But are they a slightly easier out than the Saints? I think they might be just based on the matchups. I think the Packers are a better team, but I just think the Bucs maybe match up more favorably with the Packers just based on those way those two teams are constructed.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of great points. And look, I agree with you. The Buccaneers secondary has had some struggles. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going to pretend like they're the Patriots, corners the last couple of years with Stephon Gilmore and those guys. But at the end of the day, you saw Devin White returning last week. He totally took over that game.
Monster.
Drew Brees was banged up. So the reason I like this game, as you pointed out, the Buccaneers are the best run defense in the NFL. And a lot of people have not really focused on this, in my opinion, with Green Bay. They've played great all year with Aaron Rodgers, no doubt about it. 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Doesn't get much better than that. But Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, A.J. Dillon have played well all year, and the Bucs get Vita Vea back this year. The big Samoan, 6'5", 350 pounds. I don't care if he's got 1 broken ankle, 2 broken ankles. At 350 pounds, he is a road grader.
You don't teach that at football school.
What's that now?
You don't teach that at football school.
Absolutely. So I just think a guy that big, a guy that strong can definitely give the Bucs a lot of room to talk about. Now, Cam, you were saying, what's your on the weather? What do you have there for the weather? You said 26 degrees?
It'll be in the high 20s. 28 degrees is what they have pegged for kickoff. And I think it was a 40% chance of snow. We know that doesn't affect Brady, but the question is, does it affect the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, soft team from the South, and, sorry, Preston. I mean, that's the way I generally look at teams from the South, like Florida. Like, yeah, you go up to, to Lambeau and trying to win a game there. I generally don't, pick those teams. That being said, I think Tom Brady has rubbed off on that team, and it's so cliche 100%. To say, but it's 100% true. Like, I mean, he really has, brought a winning culture to that organization. And playing in Lambeau is not going to phase him. Playing in 26 degrees, that sounds like a win to me. In Wisconsin, in Green Bay, in January, and you're getting like 28 degrees and maybe a flurry or two, like that's like a nice summer day in Green Bay. So I mean, to me, I'm not so concerned about the elements. And you know what? If it's a little bit of snow too, snow's good. Snow's good for Tom Brady because it slows down opposing pass rushes. Snow's good for passing the football. Like, you don't want wind, you don't want rain. A little bit of snow, even enough snow on the track, that's good for throwing the football. And I mean, Brady's shown that his entire career. It's not going to phase Rodgers either. It's going to be a great game, and it really is. Great matchup.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I want to point out before I forget, because a lot of people, and I get it, Green Bay has been arguably, besides maybe the Chiefs, but I would argue that Green Bay's definitely been one of the more balanced teams all year, running the ball, passing the ball, and so forth. However, this same Buccaneers team whipped the Packers 38-10 early in the season in Week 6, absolutely dominated. Aaron Rodgers had his worst game of the year, really his only horrible bad game of the year, 16 for 35, 160 yards, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions, and he was sacked 4 times. So, and part of that, and they had a 10-0 lead. Aaron Rodgers was getting cocky. I got to get your opinion on this, Matt. Earlier today, I saw Aaron Rodgers dancing, doing backflips, getting buck wild. Said there's no extra pressure. He said the future is a beautiful miracle, a beautiful mystery. So, did you see those comments? And if so, what is your thought on Aaron Rodgers' mentality with that?
I did not see those comments. To me, I really don't care what anybody says, this weekend. Here's a guy, to me, this is what I focus on, guys. Aaron Rodgers he's obviously won a Super Bowl, but to me, he and Brees, of these two quarterbacks from this generation, have disappointed in the playoffs. And like, at what point do you say there's so much more pressure on Rodgers in this game than there is on Brady? Because the difference between 1 Super Bowl and 2, he hasn't even been back to 1. All right. So the amount of pressure that there is on Aaron Rodgers, to me, at least in this game, is tremendous. So, I don't care what he says. Let's see what it looks like at 3:05 on Sunday, because this is the biggest game Aaron Rodgers has played in 10 years. And frankly, 100%. I don't even think there's a close second. So,
that's a great point. Absolutely.
Yeah, think about it. Since the Super Bowl in 2010, which would have been February 2011, we're talking about 10 years since Aaron Rodgers has played a game like this. And, I was thinking a little bit earlier this week, too. Brady went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. So, and we all remember, and Cam, you can speak to this as well as anybody, being from the area, what that 14 team meant, because that had been 10 years. There was an element of revalidation.
Having won since Spygate, right.
Right. There was an element of revalidation that the Patriots desperately needed. I feel like we're at that point with Aaron Rodgers, maybe not to the extent that the Patriots were at because of your point, Spygate, Deflategate, all that nonsense. The Packers don't have that going on, but it's been 10 years since Aaron Rodgers has won a game, won the big one. So, all the pressure on him in this game. And listen, if he wins, Brady and the Bucs lose, Brady already won 2. So, this is all gravy at this point for Brady. Rodgers, that's a different story.
Oh, Rodgers has to win. He finally has the NFC Championship game at home. He hasn't had that before. Yeah. All of his prior appearances, all on the road. He's finally home. He has Lambeau Field. There's going to be a limited number of fans there, obviously. He's probably on the best team he's ever had, well-rounded. He's had a good defense, one of the best receivers in the league, one of the best running backs in the league. There's not even a close second who the most pressure's on this weekend. It's Aaron Rodgers, then a steep drop-off before we get to anybody else. He needs this badly.
Absolutely. And I actually am glad – we're not going to get too deep in the draft, but I am glad that the Packers drafted Jordan Love, because had they been smart – in my opinion, and drafted a receiver, anybody that knows how to play defense, this Packers team would be even more formidable, even more tough than they already are. Did you like that Jordan Love pick, Matt, preseason for the Packers?
Not particularly. That being said, it has worked for them. I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, because there's been a long discussion in this town, and Cam, you can speak to this as well as anybody, that the Patriots drafting Jimmy Garoppolo lit the fire under Brady's ass. And maybe it did a little bit. I would also say not throwing to Ken Burrell Tompkins and Aaron Dobson and Josh Boyce in 2013 and then throwing to Edelman, Amendola, Gronkowski, Vereen in 14, I don't know, kind of turned his career around too. So I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth and say that like that didn't mean anything with Brady and Garoppolo, and it didn't mean anything, and now it means something with Rodgers and Love. I mean, I do think that there's a factor there. But I think it's also the coach too. I mean, I think he's bought into that system, and I think that's also one of the factors as to why Aaron Rodgers is. I mean, listen, a few years ago we were talking about Aaron Rodgers maybe being on the decline. Now he put together an MVP season. Is that a factor a little bit? I think it's a little overblown, but I mean, you can't necessarily deny that at least it's one of the things that's led to his play.
It's definitely motivated him, I think. I mean, he's looking. He knows that they were greasing the skids to get him out of there. They drafted his replacement. They traded up for the guy. I know. I mean, you can say whatever you want about him as a player. He was looking over his shoulders, like they're getting ready to replace me. It definitely gave him a kick in the butt.
Yeah, I got to say, guys, I respectfully disagree because me and Cam have got into this in the past. Cam loved the Jordan Love pick. He thought that was just the smartest, most brilliant move ever. I don't, because in my opinion, look, you can argue lighting the fire under Brady. Look, Brady is a GOAT. Aaron Rodgers is a GOAT. These are two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. In my opinion, they don't need extra motivation. They are elite for elite's sake. So, Cam, we're getting comments here. We'll get back to this. Any word from Felger? Because we're getting some tweets here and so forth. Just curious, yes or no?
I haven't seen anything from him, unfortunately. I wish he was here. I would love to get him into this game. Ask him how scared he is of his defensive coordinator, which he's been talking about all week.
He's terrified.
He's terrified of his defensive coordinator this week.
Yeah, and the other thing with the Packers, Aaron Rodgers is great. Aaron Jones is great. The Packers are a great offense. Their defense is terrible. Like, nobody has really been talking about. The Packers' defense is terrible. They beat a very dilapidated L.A. Rams team, in my opinion. I know people are like, oh, the number one defense. Yeah, kind of, but not really. So this Buccaneer team has got a lot more playmakers with Devin White, Levante David, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea coming back, Carlton Davis. Now, I know you said, Matt, you're not a big fan of the defense. What do you think of the front seven with Devin White and all those guys for the Buccaneers?
I mean, listen, how can you walk away from that game last weekend without being extremely impressed by Devin White? Guy was a monster. Guy was, entirely all over the field. He was the most notable player. I think the most noticeable player maybe on both teams. I mean, he was that good. So there's a lot of talent there. Do I necessarily trust Todd Bowles to figure it out and dial up the right call at the right time? No. Why would I? I mean, there's no track record of that. But there's no doubt, Preston, that there is a lot of talent on that Bucs team, even on that defensive side of the ball. I mean, Winfield's a player, White's a player. They're really good up front. That's a good line. They're excellent against the run. So, I don't mean to diminish them. I do worry, though, about, the coaching staff and whether they can figure it out because, at the same time, you see all that talent, yet how do you allow a play that basically should only work in NFL blitz, that pass, right, from Jameis Winston, the trick play? How do you allow the guy to run straight up the field?
He was open by what are we doing yards here? There was no one within 20 yards of him.
Right. It wasn't anybody in the same frame. What are we doing here, guys?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a lot of great points. At the end of the day, the Saints are the Saints. The Saints have been a great team all year long, so they did a good gadget play. Yep. And honestly, I think it was just coming in Tampa. I don't think a lot of people in Tampa thought Jameis Winston could throw the football. So at least not to the other team. That's the best throw I've ever seen Jameis Winston throw, and it was in the playoffs. So that's probably going to be one of the few times you'll be able to say Jameis Winston in playoffs in the same sentence. So, yeah. So let's get Matt's take before we forget. We covered this. I'm glad we all like the Bucs. And look, I did think we could beat the Saints. To go back to the Saints, the reason why, again, Drew Brees was banged up. Mm-hmm. Michael Thomas was banged up. And we've seen it out of the Saints. The Saints play great in the regular season. They are paper champions, much like the Steelers. They are great in the regular season. But when it comes time, when the money's on the line, they just don't show up. And I got to commend Tom Brady's health because he continues to stay great shape all year long. But every year, the last 3 years, we've seen Drew Brees break down. Right, Matt?
Well, the difference between Brady and Brees to me was striking in that game, and it's one of the major takeaways that anybody should have. Here's Drew Brees, who's probably a top 10 quarterback in the history of the NFL. Maybe that's a discussion for another day as to where Brees belongs, but you're talking about a guy who's been an elite quarterback, in this league for a long, long time. He's the closest to Brady in age, so he's the closest to Brady as far as being a peer when it comes to that. And Brady is just light years away, ahead of this guy. Now, you hear the reports today. He had, broken ribs. He had a torn up foot. He had this. He had that. everybody has this or that. This is football. Like, everybody plays through it. The difference between Brady and Brees was, I think, the major takeaway that everybody should have. Like, how the hell is Tom Brady still playing at this level at the age of 43 when Drew Brees, who was in many ways the closest to Brady as far as like keeping up a high level of play into his 40s, the difference was just, I mean, come on. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, it was just, they weren't even on the same planet.
It's the avocado toast is what it is. Cam is telling me with TB12, it's got to be the avocado toast. Yeah, I mean, look, I got to be honest. I as crazy as it sounds, I question that Tom Brady could play at this level at 43. I'm never going to question Tom Brady again. If Tom Brady says, Tampa Bay, I want to re-sign for 7 years till age 50, make the deal. Make the deal. It's crazy. It's insane. But there's Tom Brady and there's everybody else. All the other statues, the old guys, Big Ben, Rivers just retired. Drew Brees looks beat up, is probably going to retire. All the other old guys are beat to hell. Even Matt Ryan, who I believe is only 36, he looks beat to hell. Tom Brady is just wired differently. Right?
Just look at those 04 quarterbacks. Eli retired about 2 years later than he should have. Rivers retired about 2 years later than he should have. And Roethlisberger should retire now. He's done too. Brady was drafted 4 years before them, and he's still playing at a high level. It's unbelievable what he's doing.
It's remarkable. And you know what, Preston? You're not the only one who was wrong about Tom Brady because Bill Belichick didn't think he'd be playing this way at the age of 43. This is what it ultimately comes down to. It's why he's playing in Tampa Bay. Bill Belichick got the evaluation on Tom Brady wrong. Now, you want to say in 2017, hey, can you really count on this guy playing at, this extremely high level at the age of 43? Well, guess what? That's not my job. A, I still wanted him here, so I was right about it. But B, that's not my job to figure it out. That's Bill Belichick's job to figure it out, to determine that, yes, he can still play at the age of 43. And that's why he's playing in Tampa Bay now, because Bill Belichick thought he couldn't, he was not going to be able to play at this high level. He wanted to move on. He wasn't willing to make that type of commitment. It's why, the wheels started in motion in 2017 when Brady wanted the extension. Bill didn't want to commit to, a player entering his 40s at that point. Bill didn't want to commit, even going back to last offseason, he wasn't willing to make it work. Somebody else was willing to make it work. And that's why Tom Brady's still playing this weekend and Bill Belichick sitting at home trying to get Linda Holiday off of Instagram.
Yeah, let's get go ahead, Cam. We got to get into that, but that's exciting. Go ahead, Cam.
How foolish does the rest of the NFL look right now? I mean, Tom Brady at the end of the day had two real offers: the Bucs and he had three total. Because if you want to count the Patriots offer, he was never coming back here, but there was an offer there.
Wasn't that for like a league minimum bare bones offer?
I think it was $15 million a year for a year. It was ridiculous. It was insulting.
I can't get out of bed for $15 million. What are they talking about? That's ridiculous.
I think the only two real offers he had were from the Bucs and Chargers, and he wanted to stay on the East Coast, be closer to his son with his ex on the East Coast. That's why he chose Tampa. But the rest of the league, these teams we've seen the Bears, the Niners, the Titans. I know Tannehill had a good year. All these teams that could have been in on Tom Brady with these ready-made teams, and you don't do it. And this is where I give the Bucs credit. They were aggressive. They're like, here's Tom Brady. Like, this is the greatest of all time. He can still play. We're going after him. They went after him hard, and nobody else did. And the rest of the league should be hanging their heads in embarrassment.
Cam, this is a point that I've been making for the last few weeks, and you're spot on with this. I think this is one of the great collective mistakes in recent sports memory because how the hell were there only two teams interested in this guy? It is abundantly clear he can still play. All right. I mean, it is obvious to anybody. Like, you bring in a Martian, put the Martian on Earth, put him in front of a television screen and watch football, and he could figure out that Tom Brady could still play. How the rest of the NFL took one look at this guy and said, yeah, no.
We'll take Kirk Cousins.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's astonishing. Just let's run through teams right now. Miami, the Jets, the Giants,
the Broncos,
San Francisco, right?
San Francisco,
Tennessee,
the Carolina Panthers signed Teddy Bridgewater. The Indianapolis Colts willfully, consciously, and deliberately picked Phillip Rivers.
I'm glad. I'm so glad they chose Phillip Rivers and not Tom Brady. Yeah, I mean, by the way, I'm sure you guys know this. Tom Brady set a Buccaneers record with throwing 40 touchdown passes. This is his first year at age 43 without a preseason. Like, this is unbelievable. He is playing at a whole nother level, and I could not be happier. And what I wanted to say previous, I don't have a problem, in my opinion, 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, if you're Bill Belichick, okay, we got a plan for the future. Brady's almost 40. You draft a second-round pick. But my theory is this. Every year when a guy gets 40, if he goes deep in the playoffs, if he goes to the AFC Championship game, you give him another year. If he goes to Super Bowl, you give him another. You keep giving him years until the play falls off. Brady played great last year. Brady played great this year. You continue to give Brady another year until the wheels fall off. What do you think about that, Matt?
Well, I mean, Brady, it starts in 2017 after the Eagles Super Bowl when Bill Belichick ripped a Lombardi trophy out of Tom Brady's hands by benching Malcolm Butler. Brady wanted a commitment. He wanted a commitment from the Patriots. They weren't willing to give him that commitment. Now, you go back to last year, I believe that Brady probably would have accepted a 2-year contract extension before last year. Now, all of a sudden, you're sitting here at the beginning of the offseason when Brady signs with the Bucs, and it only takes 2 years to get the job done. The Patriots weren't willing to make that level of commitment, and by that point, they had pissed Brady off enough.
That's crazy.
That, there probably would have been a point at somewhere in there where Brady would have taken the deal from the Patriots if they were just willing to offer him the deal, which is, again, astonishing and a real indictment on Bill Belichick and the Patriots.
Man, I got to ask you this. Here's what from an outsider, you guys are in the system. You guys are seeing all the shows and everything, doing the shows. From an outsider, it just seemed to me that Bill Belichick wanted this to happen. It felt like he wanted to prove to the world that he was the system, he was the smartest guy in the room, and that he could win without Brady. I just firmly believe that. And you look at it, he had Cam Newton, and things blew up. The team won 7 games. They looked okay at times. At the end of the day, here's my philosophy on the whole Bill Belichick thing. Of course, he's the greatest coach of all time, no doubt about it. The year before Brady, you had the number 1 overall pick in Drew Bledsoe. You won 5 games. The year after Brady, you had the number 1 overall pick, formerly in Cam Newton. You win 7 games. I'm noticing a trend here.
No, listen, I think there's an element of arrogance, in that he wanted to do it on his own. In some ways, I think, maybe ultimately what led to the decision is Bill likes being in control of everything, and he likes it when you take the contract that he offers. And maybe that was even more of a factor than I want to do it on my own and I want to prove that I can win without Tom Brady. It's, well, no, Tom Brady started playing hardball with you a little bit, and that ultimately pissed you off, and you weren't willing to, then you weren't willing to negotiate and all those things. Like, Bill is the type of coach, I mean, he likes controlling everything. So when he puts a contract in front of you, you sign that contract. You sign that, and if you do that, you take Bill's crappy contract offer. I mean, you'll be in the good graces as long as you're around. Like, I mean, really, you'll be.
That's what happened with Cam Newton. He took his crappy contract, didn't mouth off about it, and that's why he played all year.
Right, and Bill, kissed his ass all year long. Bill was more effusive in his praise of Cam Newton in 1 year than he was of Tom Brady over the course of, I don't want to say 20 years because I think that's a little unfair to Bill, but certainly over the last few years when Tom Brady started playing hardball with the contract.
There's nothing that agitates Belichick more than when you don't take his contract.
Well, here is the thing that I think that it's starting to unravel a little bit, because I get it, Bill Belichick and all this and all the excitement. He's a great coach. No one denies that. But I firmly believe the reason why it was a sternness is because Brady bought in the whole time. Brady bought in the whole time. I remember hearing Chad Johnson, when he joined your team, it didn't work out because he wasn't a great route runner, many other problems, immaturity. But he said what stunned him is the very first practice, Belichick ripped into Tom Brady. Do you honestly think a guy of Aaron Rodgers' stature could put up with that for 20 years? Because I don't believe that he could. They get ripped by Bill Belichick every single practice, first preseason game, first practice. Do you think a guy like Aaron Rodgers or whoever could take that kind of criticism?
No, I mean, listen, I think, Brady and Belichick both created the greatness. Neither one would be as successful without the other. I mean, I think that is abundantly clear because Brady did take the coaching and Brady did buy in, and Brady created the culture here as much as Belichick. And I think that's in many ways what should be our takeaway from this past season is that, this whole Patriot way thing, it's not Bill, it's not Tom, right. It's both of them. Now, and, to implement that type of culture, you need the star player, the best player, the guy at the top to set the culture for everybody else. And that's what Tom Brady did. Tom Brady enabled that. And, I think enable is maybe not the right term. Tom Brady
allowed it to
Not
happen.
even allowed it. He helped facilitate it, and
Right.
I think maybe Belichick would say, well, he enabled it. No, Brady was he was a co-pilot on that. And I think ultimately that's the way Brady wanted to be viewed, more as a co-pilot. Belichick didn't want to view him that way. And I think that's one of the many things that led to the breakup.
So does this mean that risk it for the biscuit Bruce Arians is now considered in the upper echelon because he won 2 games with the 43-year-old quarterback? Is it now changing? Is he really the quarterback whisperer that people have been rumored about for years, even though he's doubled his playoff wins this year versus the whole rest of his career as a head coach?
Absolutely not. Cam, you want to add to that?
No, look, I mean, I don't have much of a problem. I think Bruce Arians is a decent coach. I don't think he's a bad coach. But given the rest of the league, I think he's in the top 15 at the very least, given how bad the coaching in the league has been. It's just, yeah, you are a quarterback whisperer. Well, yeah, you coached Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, and Carson Palmer.
Right.
I could be a quarterback whisperer with those guys.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, let me tell you what he's whispering. Hey guys, you're great. Throw the ball. I mean, I hate to oversimplify it. I mean, look, Bruce Arians. We've been critical about Bruce Arians here in Tampa because he's been a little wild. I did not like the way he handled Tom Brady. He's just, Tom Brady missed this receiver. Tom Brady missed Mike Evans. I thought Bruce Arians should be a little bit more appreciative of Tom Brady, being the fact that Tom Brady is towing the company line like he always has, doing all the steps. He's literally dragging this team to success because there's been several games this year, the Bears game, both of the Saints game, which I firmly believe were coaching losses. We didn't manage the game. We didn't run the ball. We did not call optimal plays. And I firmly believe the last 4 to 5 weeks, Bruce Arians has adopted to Tom Brady. Last game, Mike Evans had 1 catch last week. It happened to be a touchdown. Chris Godwin had multiple drops, dropped another touchdown again. So our receivers are great, but it's been Tom Brady dragging this team up. I firmly believe it.
No, 100%. I mean, I know you could say the defense was what carried the game the other day, and it was. I'm not disputing that. It's just Brady's whole presence has lifted that whole team. The whole team knows that's Tom Brady. He's going to give us a chance to win if we do our jobs.
No, I agree 100%, Cam. I mean, that's Brady has brought a winning culture to that team, which is frankly unbelievable because they're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, it's incredible. The losingest franchise in all of sports, Tom Brady's turned them into, I'm not going to call them winners yet, but,
they're winners. They're winners, Matt. They're winners.
Winners by your standards.
Winners, yeah. I tell you, I hate to say this, Matt. Since you're being brutally honest with me, I got to be brutally honest with you guys. It's shifted. It has shifted. The Patriots' future,
yeah.
The Patriots' future, the next 20 years, it is going to be very difficult, in my opinion, for the Patriots to regain the glory. Because even with Bill Belichick there, we'll see if you guys get Jimmy G or whoever it is. I'm just simply saying I do not believe that the Patriots the next 5 to 8 years are going to continually get Dante Hightower at a discount, Stephon Gilmore at a discount, all these elite players. That's what I feel a lot of people miss in New England because, like, Bill Belichick's the greatest. And yes,
they came to play with Brady.
They came to play with Brady because it seemed like magically this year the Bucs made a lot of great moves. We drafted Tristan Wirfs, the best offensive lineman. We signed Leonard Fournette for peanuts. All these extra moves that
Antonio
before
Brown.
we just didn't make, that this year it all worked out. We signed Antonio Brown basically for the league minimum. All these extra moves. We got Gronkowski, right around for the salary, so he might resign next year at a bargain again. So let's do this. Let's wrap this up. Let's get into Buffalo, Kansas City. 3-point favorites, Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is still on the concussion protocol, which I think is a very interesting situation. Matt, do you have a take on that?
No, I mean, listen, I think he plays, but again, I'm not really going to have any takes on, whether or not but I'm going to leave that up to the doctors. I'll give you my take on the game.
On the game, yeah.
I think Kansas City wins this game. I think Buffalo is going to make it a little bit more competitive than, say, the regular season matchup. I actually think, until Buffalo proves that they can stop the run, which they could not do in that regular season matchup, and Kansas City ran all over them, I think the Chiefs control the clock and they move the ball too much for Buffalo to contend with. I would love to see the Bills, in the Super Bowl, because if you're not rooting for the sports schadenfreude of the Bills going through 20 plus years of Tom Brady literally owning that city, not the franchise. He doesn't own the franchise. He owns the city of New York. the city of Buffalo, New York, the entire region of Western and Central New York, and the Finger Lakes. He owns everything. The Southern Tier, he owns that. You might as well name it its own state, Bradyville, because he owns them. Absolutely owns them. He's the
third most wins in that stadium ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in that area. Trust me, I know how the people in that area feel about Tom Brady. They hate him. They hate him so much. So the thought of the Bills finally getting back to the glory that, getting back to the Super Bowl, Brady's out of the way. We win the division. We're here. We're back. Oh my God, Tom Brady's on the other side. Holy crap. I need it. I need to watch Brady rip their souls out again for the sports schadenfreude at the moment. I do. But ultimately, I think we're looking at a Kansas City, Tampa Bay Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs win that game. I just think the Chiefs are the best team in football. But do I want to see Bills Bucs? Hell yeah, I do.
There we go. I want to see it too. Cam, let's get you the last word here.
Well, you see, I do wish Felger was here because he said this yesterday, and I wanted him to elaborate on it. He thinks the Bills are better off losing this weekend. Because
Asinine take. What are we doing?
The Bills, wait a minute. The Bills are better off losing the AFC Championship game and going home?
This was his logic, he said. Because it's so many times we've seen it before. This young and up-and-coming team that gets to the Super Bowl and loses in a devastating fashion, they're never the same. That was his logic. He's like, the Bills in the long run will be better off if they lose this week. That was his take yesterday.
I would have to hear that take because that sounds like drunk logic to me. I have to say I'm rooting for the Bills, and here's the only problem. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Matt, but the Bills do not run the ball. They just pass every play. So
right.
That's the thing. So, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think at the end of the day, I'm taking the Bills. I'm taking the Bills and the Bucs, with the Bucs taking it all. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So thanks again, Matt, for coming on. We really appreciate it. We thought we were going to get Felger on, but he must have just had too much wine to drink for night, too many cigars on the top of the rooftop bars. So maybe he got into a little fisticuffs. But we thanks again, Matt, for coming on. Great take.
Guys, always good to be on with you. Happy to do it.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks again.
See you guys.
See ya.